Hello and welcome back to Talking About Cross Stitch with me, the Stitching Owl. I come to you today halfway through September of 2024, wondering where the time has gone. I am happily stating that we have had a break in our humidity, and while our days are delightfully warm enough for me to want to continue to walk outside, it is so much more pleasant, and because the humidity is gone, some of the annoying mosquitoes from our neighborhood have decided not to be around as well. So this is the perfect weather, and I know it's the weather where many of us go, aha, I want to start stitching fall things, and I want to start stitching Halloween things. So seasons are changing. I believe next weekend we will have the official calendar change from summer to fall. Now, before I get any further into this video, I just want to say one more time, thank you to everybody who participated in Canada Swaps. I'm having so many delightful emails of happy satisfaction about the smalls that are being received. Now, in the video that was up for the last week or so, there were almost all of the photos that I had received. I did miss one, and I want to apologize to Lisa of Lost in Stitches that just somehow, not only is her title Lost in Stitches, I got lost with her video, her photo, and she had sent it. So it is in the newly established video that was uploaded today, and it could be that in the future I will do yet one more edit as one last small makes its way to its intended recipient. So other than that, I believe I have uploaded every photo that I was sent to the Stitching Owl, and if I've missed something, please feel free to continue to alert me that your small didn't make it into the video. I realize that, well, I said there was 32 participants. There are not 32 photos yet, in part because one of the pieces has not gone out, but also I believe I didn't get one or two of the photos of things that were sent. But if it is just me, I am happy to edit again. Now, on with what is going on. I am happy to report that the 4 Send Us Smiles have actually reached everybody. I never make an assumption about these things. The post office does their best, and some of these smalls have 2 post offices involved, so sometimes things can go awry. But I had the pleasure, actually, the first time, Amy of Renewing Stitches actually saved her envelope to open with me while we were on a Zoom, and so I was able to see her reaction to the card that I sent and the smalls that I put in. One of Amy's favorite colors is blue, and I have to say I was particularly proud of my Swooping Swallows finish that I did. It is a Pigeon Coop design. I'm going to restitch it again because I just enjoyed the process so much. So I did send my Swooping Swallows to Amy. She has become indeed a special friend to me who will stitch with me 2-3 times a month, and I find great joy and relaxation in those moments. To be honest, the past couple of weeks I've had much outpouring of prayers, and I thank you. We were in a holding pattern for this past week, and this week we go into more testing and decision making for my mother's health. Thank you for your prayers. I truly appreciate all of the messages that you have sent. I also want to thank Kim of Contented Needleworker Kim for having a online stitchy session with me one day to just help me gain further ease with life in general. It was a delightful time, and indeed we even explored color options for some changes that I might be making to stitches. And I also had the opportunity to do a stitch together with Karen of KBH Stitches. She is, again, all of these ladies are very special friends to me, and I know that she is right on the edge of a California fire, and when recovering from a recent infection, definitely is still having challenges with the coughing. But I was just so glad that she was able to spend a bit of time with me online. Again, it is medicine without having to take any pills. It's perfect for me. Thank you to all of my friends, and I am looking forward to my first online stitchy session with Connie in this coming week. I love that I can carry my iPad everywhere and link up just by knowing somebody's email address. Okay, let's go into my fully finishes. So last weekend there was a Zoom Stitching with Sandy because she does this second and fourth, yes. Well, now I don't even know which Sunday she does, but she does the ones where I'm not recording. And I hope that I don't have things wrong and am actually doing this while there is one going on, but I believe it was last week. And when I'm having my stitching sessions with all those lovely ladies, I do finishing. So there was a couple of days where I felt kind of out of sorts, and every time I tried to stitch, it seemed that the frog had to hop along with me. I had one part of my Canada flag that I was in and out 3 times when I went, okay, not meant to be doing this today, but I desperately need to stitch. So I found a set of, they are gnomes, and they are on cross stitch patterns. Now, Paterns spelt with 1 T. I believe they had to do that so that they didn't overlap with somebody else's Etsy site. And what I got when they had a 40 or 50% off time, I got a whole series of gnomes, and they go delightfully into Pattern Keeper. Now let's see if this works. And the answer is no. In my downstairs lighting, you cannot see what I have here for a mock-up, but literally I have 50 gnomes that go through Halloween, summer, fall, Christmas, Easter, and St. Patrick's Day. And these are all fairly small, so it makes it so that, I'm just going to get out of that since I can't use it again later. So it's block stitching. Many of the gnomes that Laura's Stitching by the Shore are actually large and have fantastic shading. These ones are simpler. Now, I did this on a 32 vintage country mocha, and this is my fall leaf gnome. Oh, puppy's come down to say hi. We'll see whether she lets me pick her up or not. So again, the white is all white. I didn't have to try and work in some ecru and lovely almost white colors. It's just basic. There's a little nose and hands that are very subtle. And then of course his little feet and his hat. So this was something that I could do without counting too hard. The leaf, while it looks intricate, was a DMC brown that is variegated, and as such it made it look very leaf-like and real. But again, I was only stitching with one color, and I didn't worry about how the different shades of the variegation showed up because no two leaves are alike. So that was my first fully finish. I think I'll try some more of the gnomes, of course, because they are an easy stitch for me. I think I'm going to take it to 36 or 40 so that they're a little bit smaller. You can see that as ornaments go, this is on the largest size. Oh, in my hand. So this is another one I finished while I was stitching with Sandy. I have to be honest, I'm not fully sure. I just found this stitch in amongst a bunch of magazines as I was hunting. Well, I was checking out what I had so I could put it into my computer so I don't buy things second and third time. I believe that this was just an alphabet that I have out of a magazine somewhere, and this is stitched on 25 count even weave, so it came out like it's quite small and narrow, but it will go on a tree ever so nicely. And then the other thing that I fully finished on that Zoom was one of the Quakers from 1 Dozen Quakers by Rosewood Manor. And what I'm doing is I'm working along with Sheila and EJ of the Sunshine Stitchers and the Bake Me a Quaker Sal, but I'm not doing the pattern as printed. I am taking out pieces here and there and then doing them in different colors. This one clearly is different colors of pink and magenta, and then I bead partly in here. This has 2 sizes of beads on it, and then I bead the side and I put a simple backing on. So often these are something that I will send out in my Send a Smile. So for 2025, I haven't decided what pattern I'm going to use for most of my Send a Smiles, because really the Bake Me a Quaker Sal has provided many of my Send a Smiles this year. And it has been so much fun to do this. Really, if I encourage you to visit the last Sunshine Stitchers video, which was uploaded yesterday, they are announcing that they are going to be doing a Jacob of Modern Folk Embroidery stitch along for next year, and it is a gorgeous pattern. I hope you take a peek and decide if you would like to join everybody in that as well. Okay, sorry, I have to reach around everything. So I do have one more finish. As you know, I have been working on these cookie cutter Christmas ornaments with Allison of Mrs. AZ Zoo. And we have a cookie cutter Sal, Christmas cookie cutter Sal that we are doing. She is finishing hers on the tins like they are showing right here. Now, what I have done is, of course, something a little different. Oh good, I brought my chair over for putting things on. So I made a lollipop. So that I'm going to ask my mother here, I'm going to put it over here so it's not in front of my quilt that I'm going to chat about later. My mother has a few frogs, different kind of frog, a vase frog where it's a piece of glass and there's holes in it that they go in an angle so that you can put flowers into a vase. And I know she's got an extra one that I forgot to ask for, because I want to be able to make a centerpiece vase with my lollipops. Now, when I do these, I don't put a normal backing on. I am actually using another one of the patterns. So we have the gingerbread house and the gingerbread man on here. Now, I had initially thought that I would be doing a tutorial. Next weekend is the 5th Sunday of September, but I am not going to be available to make a tutorial video that day. And honestly, these are easier than they look. So the first thing I do is I make the equivalent of big buttons. You know, I'm doing this on 32 count. If these were stitched on, I would say 40 count, maybe even 20 count Ada, these could be covered buttons. And that would be absolutely adorable on one of our Christmas shirts that we lovingly call ugly sweaters that are actually quite beautiful. So what I do is I do the lacing and try to know which way is up. And then I do the lacing on the second one. So this is a new stitch this past 2-week period, the Santa sleigh. And then you're saying, well, what happens next? How do I get a lollipop out of this? Because you know I explore lots of ways to fully finish things without actually doing framing, although I must admit I'm very tempted to go at the framing too. So I sent to Amazon for these paper sticks. These are actually meant for cake pops, where you just take pieces of cake, roll them up, roll them in some icing and a stick in it, so that at a child's birthday party, instead of a huge piece of cake, they've got something on a stick, and everybody loves something on a stick. Now you can get these in acrylic, but I thought I want to use paper so that if I need to shape the top of the stick in order to make this work, I can just use an X-Acto knife on it. So you can see that I'm ready to do more of these. They were so much fun. What I do is I take 2 of these. This is comic book board, again from Amazon. And I've made my circles. I will cut out these in pairs because I put 2 inside a single one of these just for enough strength that when I do a pretty good pull on my gathering thread, that this will not buckle. If it's a single one, it will start to wave. So I use a double. Okay. And then I find out which end is up to put these together. And then I literally am just going around the outside, closing it with beading. Now these are the size 8s, not 11, so they're a little bit bigger than my normal beads. But what you'll also notice is at the bottom, I left a spot that is not closed so that I can pop this in and out without any problem. And I did not, if I bring this out and put that up there, there we are. You can see I actually didn't have to shape the top of it. It just slides into that ever so nicely. And I think it would be nice to actually use an X-Acto knife and have varying lengths of cake pops for the final centerpiece. But that's actually how I go from a simple stitch to a stretched button, do the beading, and I insert a paper stick. You don't need a tutorial for that. You can do it. So these are fun, and to be honest, would be a great smalls gift if you are going to a retreat. So that was another fully finished item. There we go. I'm always like, where did I put things? Now, I've had a few people ask me when I'm fully finishing things how I manage my different shapes, because I don't always stick with a straight shape. So I've got a binder that is just a binder from a company that my husband used to work for that doesn't even exist anymore. And in here, over the years, when the children were little, I made photo albums. I hesitate to call it scrapbooking, because I really was just shaping photos, cutting off background that was way too big and making them in shapes. But for the longest time at Michael's, before you could get like the Cricut cutters and things like that, you could get this type of stencil. So in here, in this binder, you can see I've got different shapes available to me. This one has a heart, an oval, a star, a circle. So those are like seriously hard plastic. But there was also something called Deja Views that I can't quite find right at the moment, where you would get, it's more of a flexible plastic, but you can see I've got 3 sizes of ovals, a big circle and a little circle. This was the shape that I took, just put it this way, for this. So I am not sure you can get these templates quite as easily now as when I collected them. My children, the youngest is 25, oldest is 29, and these were readily available at Michael's. I haven't seen them lately, but that's how I do all of my special shapes. And then for circles, I also got from Amazon this pack that has everything from very small to almost a dinner plate circle, which, to be honest, you can just use a dinner plate. So since people had asked, I thought I would share that with you. So those are all of my fully finished items. Well, maybe not. I did fully finish one more project bag. This is a Quilt As You Go, and it is using batik 2.5-inch strips that just came on something called a jelly roll. And you're noticing that he's a fat one, and that's because in here, yesterday, I kitted up, my next BAP. I was going to show you the mock-up on my tablet, but just the kind of lights I have down here seems to just make everything go white on my tablet screen, so I'm not going to do it. The question people has is it the same size as the owl? So I actually bought 2, and I'm having a hard time picking between them. One of them is like 16,000 stitches bigger, and one of them is about 16,000 stitches smaller. But having said that, they stitch the white background, and I'm going to just pick a beautiful white, probably an even weave, and then I won't stitch the white background. So I'll have to calculate how many over 100,000 it is if you take out all of the background. But I have that waiting because I like to have a full coverage on at all times. And as you know, I'm starting to get down on my owl. Okay, now we're going to go to finished items, and you know that I have been working on the 12 Days of Christmas Stocking with Dottie the Stitching Scotty, and of course Annie the Proper Stitcher is also doing this, and the whole idea of a stitch along was the brainchild of Alicia, the fanciful flamingo, and of course the bougie stitchers are busy stitching these as well. So what I have been doing lately is concentrating on the stitches that I'm doing on white so that I can get that done for our wedding gift. And in the past 2 weeks, I was able to do the 6 geese a laying. I'm just going to remind you that this is a 36 count. It is an opalescent linen. You can't really see that it glitters, but it does. In here, I am using sulky thread. I have a delightful assortment because I can get these in town. And instead of beads on this, I am using French knots. So in my 6 and the eye here, you can see that I have French knots instead of beads. So I had thought that I would be stitching number 6 and 7 parallel so I could show you 2 of them, but of course, this is how far number 7 got. I'm showing you something recognizable, the number 7, but I have not even started on the swan. So I will be working on the swan, and in a perfect world, I will be getting one done every week so that at the end of November, I will be able to send out this gift for when somebody might be putting up their first married Christmas tree. Also in the finish category, my daughter had one more week before classes started, and she continued to stitch up a storm as she waited for her classes. So in here, now I'm just going to take off my ornaments. So this is the little penguin. So this is a series of either 10 or 12 patterns by Maria of Cute Patterns by Maria on Etsy. And she's stitching on a 14 count Aida. And I will be finishing these as soon as I get around to doing the finishing. She has found these stitch up very quickly. She also finished the little bear. So that means she's got 3 of these done already. But on top of that, she also finished something by the tiny Modernist. It's called Love Grows Here. So I'm going to try and hold it close enough you can see it. So this is again on a 14 count Aida. It is a specialty die. Sky something is left over from one of her other projects. So she was thinking that her friends that are having their weddings this year, that this could be like a lovely Christmas present. The wedding that happened this weekend, I supplied a quilt so that she could give a quilt to the happy couple for their spare bedroom. So there are the finishes. Obviously, I'm getting more finishes thanks to my daughter. And that brings us to whips, which of course means works in progress. So I'm first going to go to Caroline's birthday sale, which is Weeds and Wildflowers, I almost said Wildflowers, by the Artsy Housewife. Now, I did stitch myself happy here, and I will say, again, thank you to Amy for keeping me company as I worked on this moth. There was one day I looked at that moth and thought, oh my goodness, this moth is bigger than it seems. So I started to count, and the way the pattern is, just trying to think, there's about this much of that wing on the second page and then all of this on the first page. I got to over 500 on a partial wing. So I looked at this and went, oh my goodness, there's over 2,000 stitches in this moth. So Karen being Karen, I thought I was going to text Caroline, and I thought, no, that's very presumptuous of me. So I emailed her and said, Caroline, did you know how big this moth is? And she even commented that I sent her that email on her last Flosstube Evertote notes from the workshop. So many of us are working very hard on that moth, and indeed, I just don't want to lose my needle, I got the moth done. So to my mind, I am now in the perfect situation of being able to finish this by the end of September, which was kind of one of the challenges Caroline of Evertote put out to us. Because I've got one flower here that is not one of the bigger flowers and some more border to go, and then I will be done this lovely pattern. I am stitching this on a 16 count Roxy Flossco fabric. It is an Aida, and it is called Buttercup, and this color is now available on evertote.ca. It is delightful to work with. The weight of the fabric is beautiful. It doesn't stretch too far. It just works so nicely. And of course, I am using Roxy Floss. We were sent in the birthday box the complete set of colors. And right at the moment, I have left out the flowers here because I'm going to use some of the flosses, still going to be Roxy Flossco, that were a lovely gift from my students, and just put things a little bit pinker so that around the outside there is a pop of color. Now, what else have I been stitching on? Well, I have been happily working on the Peacock pincushion with Connie and her friends. This is a Cottage Garden Samplings pattern. As one suspects, there are definitely details in the wings and patterning up the body that is so familiar from the Year in the Woods patterns that they did a couple of years ago. Now, I am doing mine on 22 count Hardanger so that the finished product is a little bit more pincushion size rather than like it on 14 would be like a dinner plate to me. Maybe a lunch plate, not a dinner plate. So my goal this week was to get a lot of these plumes in. They're almost finished, just the center of these two. And then to get 2 colors into all of the rest of the plumes so that the next time I do this, I just take a color and then I go into each of the feathers. And then once I've done that 3 or 4 times with the 3 or 4 different colors, then all of the feathers will be done, and I just have to add the little headpiece that is natural to a peacock. This is a very fun stitch. It would be easy to be monogamous on this and just stitch it right to the end. I do find it relatively easy to stitch on Hardanger with 1 thread of DMC. And the stitches do come through very evenly. Now I have discovered I've got a missed stitch here that I need to put in. And then all of these little, they are just blank right now. I need to go in and put some light gray so they're almost silver into each one of those. But that's just waiting. I don't have to count, I just put them in. So this is a lovely stitch. The one thing I will say is that, hang on, I've got to do this in such a way I don't show the pattern. So this is how it opens up. If you don't make a working copy and you're just opening and closing and opening and closing, you start to wear a hole in this center. So I've already done that spot, so I'm not worried about the one stitch that has been affected. but I do know now that I should have taken a working copy of this particular pattern so that I could have saved the original more pristinely. Now this is a Sunflower September. We are celebrating with Caroline of Caroline's Stitch Corner. She comes to us from Austria and is a delightful Flosstuber. I hope you'll check her out. And I chose another Cottage Garden Samplings pattern, Beezy Spring, because of the sunflowers on it. So the last time that I showed you, I had just started and I had done the bee and a couple blades of a sunflower. So this time, I have all of this sunflower done and the bee skep has been started. So it's a sizable bee skep and it is solidly stitched in multi-colors. So it's going to take me a little bit of time, but that's okay, I don't need to rush. And then I'm going to put one more sunflower over here, but I'm going to leave the top blank so that I can do an arch at the top for my finished product. This is on 20 Count Ada Cloud Break from Roxy Floss Co. So it is very fun. And as things go from Cottage Garden Sampling, you have more block stitching than is typical, because usually you have to change colors constantly. So it is a very nice stitch. If I had more stitchy time, it would have been further. And we all know the world was waiting for this book from Pigeon Coop Designs. Pigeon Coop is it Max Pigeon? Yeah, Max Pigeon. He's from Quebec, Canada. And it's an entire book of forest creatures. I actually want to stitch this entire book minus one. I'm not into the insects. I might do a simple ornament of the insects and see if there's anybody that I run into that has a child that might be into insects that they could take it for their child, but we'll see. So the challenge here, I am doing this with Beth the Steadfast Stitcher in a Pigeon book Sal, and Helen D is doing Pigeon book Sal. Ooh, I bet I'm going to list below the two names of the different Sals for this, because one is Helen and one is with Beth. So I'm doing this with Beth. We went back and forth several times. The challenge here was figuring out where were we starting. So had I been available yesterday, I would have been on a Zoom for Crafts and Books because people were starting this. Either that or Friday the 13th. It might have been Friday the 13th they did that, and I wasn't available then either to stitch with them. Crafts and Books has regularly a Zoom room open, whether it's weekends or weekdays, and they are a lovely group. So if you're searching for someone to stitch with, you can go on there, and sometimes they are completely quiet. Everybody's just having this sense of community by stitching. And other times there's lively chatter and laughter. So I decided, well, okay, my floss decided for me that I was going to do Winter Walk. And the reason I say my floss decided is I had every color on this chart, and you can see over here, there's not that many colors. So yesterday, I had another special day. Lisa, Forest City Stitching, emailed me on Thursday. My son has a birthday party, so I can go to the Stitch-In at Stitches Central. They have a room at the back that they open every Saturday, free to any stitchers to pop in. What you do is you sign up going through a cart on stitchescentral.ca, And in that way, they can do a cutoff if they've got a full room. It was possible for Lisa and I to join them. Delightful amount of ladies, lovely chatter. And I also met Jody. Hi, Jody. So a commenter happened to be there. And I was like, now I know you and we'll be able to be fast friends indeed. And I did find several people who were going to be going to Stitch North October. So, yay, more friends to meet with. They'll be at the next table. So this is how far I got yesterday with my bear. So this was an experiment of material. When I was at Stitch It Central a week ago, I noticed that they had an area of material called Floba, F-L-O-B-A, and I had no idea what that was, but it looked lovely and felt like a lovely weight, because you know I really like to know how, whether it's a stretchy thin one or not. So I started on this. When Max did his, every one of his stitches are on a 14 count Aida. That doesn't mean we have to do exactly the same thing, but it does say that you can do every one of this book on Aida if that's your preference. So this is an easy material to stitch on. The threads I can see. Yes, I use dollar store magnifiers, but it's not hard at all, whether it's the middle of the night or whether it's in the daytime. So I didn't need to have any extra lighting even in that back room, which is good because I said to Lisa I was going to take one and I forgot. But I am really excited about this, and we'll see how far I get it before I see you again. And if I get this done, I'm just going to turn around and start another one. So when we signed up, when we pre-signed up for the Forest Friends book, we could send a receipt for our purchase to Max, and then we would get a freebie. So this is Forest Fox, and I have actually noticed that a couple of people have already finished this on Flosstube. So that's really, really cool. Now, Forest Fox on me. So I did this on a corner of that, now I can't remember, Daybreak, I might be wrong now, material, 20 count from Roxy Flossco. So my fox is coming out small like an ornament, and I love it. So I will continue to stitch on this, and we'll see whether I can get that well on the way, perhaps even done by the next time we're together. Now, a few weeks back, I made this bobbin keeper. So I used clear vinyl. So I've got colors for like 3 different Forest Friends in here. When I make this again, because I will make more, what I'm going to do is to make it a little bit wider. So I've got wider amount here, and you can of course add another row of things if you want more bobbins to fit in. But I'm actually going to sew in here a piece of white felt. So that white felt will be a catcher for the extra threads as you're waiting to use it again. So Max has like rows, complete rows of one color, and then you go to another color. So you can leave some colors out because you're going to come back to them. Having a piece of felt is very handy for that. But it also is handy because it, on humid days, it stops this from sticking to itself when I close it. So I just used a poly cotton leftover from something my mother made. It would have been the lining of something. And that's how I did that one. So loads and loads of fun with regards to my forest stitch. Now, I am also stitching on the Vivster Canadian flag for the Quaker flag Sal. I got 1 1/3 Quakers done this week. So I finished this one, and you can start to see the edge of my maple leaf coming in. So I'm now doing the red here. So this is, this flag will be part of the I Spy challenge, because I can use this for the prompt, something you'd see at a school, because all of the schools have a flag somewhere, and stitch something red. There's your red. Now I did use my Peacock. I want to get it a little further, and then I will post pictures, because I'm sorry, Laura, I haven't posted any pictures even though I'm stitching along. My Peacock is, of course, something with a bird. So I've got more prompts that are I can do. I'm struggling a little bit with something to do with the wedding. We'll have to see. Maybe there is a bell that I can stitch in my cookie cutter ornaments. And then there's bells in the Tower of Churches. But I am really pleased with this. So this is again a 36 count opalescent linen. And I'm doing this with 1 strand of 12 weight sulky thread. And Deanne Stitching on the Rock has reminded me that there's a lot of different people that are doing this. So find a Flosstuber and they'll be doing their flags. So for this, if I pop on my glasses, I have now stitched 16,194 stitches, which is 33.47%. I'm beyond the 1/3 point. And now I'm going to talk to you about my stained glass owl, which I'm not showing you in the entirety. I will put a few stills in at the end of this to show you where I am. I am now finished 148,189 stitches, which is 92.62%. So when I go into my app to find where I am for the next night, because I do stitch on this every day, I can now see the pattern of the left side is quite close. So I only now have to do 311 stitches a day in order to finish this on the first day of Stitch North, which is my overall goal. I will not take it to my mother's for the time that I need to stay over. Night. So I'm trying to stitch more than that each night so that the nights that I don't stitch it, they're compensated for. So here are the photos that I'll take, the close-ups of a few areas in my owl. And on the what else is Karen doing, you will notice that I actually have a backdrop behind me for the first time, and I'm just going to step to the side. So you can see, so the lion and the lamb. This is a pattern that is from a quilting. So it was from a quilting magazine that I found at my mother's, not one that I purchased. She is trying to give away things like magazines, so I said, ooh, I'll take that. So this is how I taught myself to do what's called the Drunkard's Path pattern. I'm not sure if you can see, but if I just do this, maybe here you can see that all of these are curved pieces. So I have been told since this that it would have been much easier had I done my first curved piece. This was not done this year, it's been out for a while. If I'd used bigger boxes than 2-inch boxes. But they were 2-inch blocks and I did all of my stitching. This was actually a prototype practice for one that I did for real for one of my students had her first baby, and they have a very large dog called Bear. And so I just looked at this lion and thought they need to have this. So what I did for her was I actually made it into a wall hanging that was a bigger lion and then a lamb, so that the L shape around the changing table, when he looked up at one wall he would see the lion, and when he looked down at his feet he would see the lamb. So that was my quilting from long ago. I am quilting again because I am making shop models for Stitch It Central. My local needlework shop is an everything all-in-one shop, from quilting to embroidery to cross stitch to knitting and crocheting. I can get needlework canvas there. I can't even count how many different kinds of floss they have. So it's a general store for people like me. And one of the things that I was doing this past week was making a model. Now, this is not fully finished. I have a bit more work to do. I'm going to stand up again. Sorry. So this is a Christmas tree skirt. Let me see if I can get the blades. So this is called a Dresden plate, but it's a very large Dresden plate. So what I have to do next is to add the batting. I will actually have to cut somewhere so that it can go around the skirt and put some bias tape on that and add some ribbons. I'll use the bias tape again. This was a lot of fun. They've actually asked me to teach how I did what I did. So I've got some quilting left to do on that. So my crafting time is not just stitching now, it is also doing some quilting, and lovely enough they've asked me to teach a beginning cross stitch class as well, which I said yes please, I want to be able to do that. So we want to time things so that young stitchers who have jobs can actually get to it, so it'll probably be an early evening, and even teenagers who are in school can come to the class. And I think it's time for my shout outs now. So today I've got an array of things. So my first shout out is a new Flosstuber, the Story Stitcher. So Joanne literally has put out one video. It's very lovely. But even though she's only been on Flosstube once, she was able to actually talk so fluently. Sometimes we are full of ums and ohs on that first Flosstube, and it just didn't happen. She got the hang of it immediately, and she's got lovely stitching. I'm hoping that you'll sort of nip over and say welcome to Flosstube and help to build her numbers of subscribers. The Chinook Crafter has been around for a little bit longer. She's got 19 videos. She is an eclectic stitcher. Her name is Michelle. So she has referenced her challenge at Focus because of attention deficit, which of course means that as stitchers, you can just jump to another project, right? So she says that deadlines don't work for her, but making checklists do. And she does love a good round robin, so that she stitches a portion and then sends it on to the next person. So she is here in Canada. I believe she said she was in Calgary. So the Chinook Crafter. Yes, let's see if we can build her numbers. And then on the vein of people that I really love to watch, but don't have as many subscribers as I think that they deserve. The first one is Sticks, Strings, and Other Things. And I know you're thinking, what an interesting Flosstube name. It's actually totally appropriate. The sticks can be her knitting needles. Her string can be either her skeins of yarn or her floss. She is skilled, very skilled at knitting as well as stitching, and I had the opportunity to meet Lee Jacobpalooza, I believe. One of the things I really like about her is she has a very clear speaking voice and a delightful sense of humor. Even if the frog comes out, she can laugh in the moment and just get going. She opens every video with, "Hello world," no, "What's up world?" So yes, a multi-crafter. She has hit 500 subscribers. I think we should be able to get her up farther than that. And lastly, in the same category is my friend Rose from Untwist Your Stitches. She's got 15 videos. She's got a variety of styles of stitches, and likewise has a few hundred subscribers, but deserves more. She just finished an Afghan for a grandbaby that is truly amazing. So when I say Afghan, it is not knitted. She purchased the Afghan material that is meant for you to cross stitch on every other stitch. And she cross stitched animals out of different books, animal babies, to get a full alphabet on this Afghan. It is truly amazing. Let me see. Yes, I also wrote down on the back of this that she's an accomplished quilter. She's got a beautiful array of quilt material behind her as she does her videos. And because of being comfortable at the sewing machine, she happily fully finishes her own pieces. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm supposed to say before I jump to my moment for music. I'm sure I've missed something, but let's go to music for now. Today's piece is called Nocturne by Edvard Grieg. Now, Grieg was called the Chopin of the North for many years because he's a deeply romantic composer, and he's from Norway, which is definitely more north than the typical composers were during the 1800s. Many of them during the 1800s were certainly European, but not quite that far north. Now, Nocturne is my Anne of Green Gables piece. Not that that's what Grieg ever thought. I mean, the book hadn't been written yet. Lucy Maud Montgomery penned Anne of Green Gables. It's a whole series. She's a Canadian from PEI. And it's a story of a young girl who, what happens is Matthew and Marilla are a brother and sister team who are gently aging and seeing that their farm is becoming a little bit hard for them to handle. So they sent to an orphanage for a little boy, thinking that they could take a young boy, train him so that by the time he was mid-teens, he could really be a huge help on the farm. So, of course, Matthew arrives at the train station to discover the only person sitting there was a red-headed girl named Anne with an E. And the book unfolds about how Matthew and Marilla come to love this little girl and her exploits. She has spunk. She will make a friend for life. So the opening of this piece opens with a little motive that has a bum, bum, bum. And that's her calling out to her friend Diana over the Garden of Delight. This predated cell phones or people even thinking about cell phones. So they had to call out to each other and race across paths to get to each other. Anne would look out her window from a house called the Green Gables and look at different trees, and she would call it the Garden of Delight. In the middle section of this, you'll find that the wind comes up and the blossoms on the crab trees flutter around and reach the ground so that there's a marvelous sea of pink in the air. After she has witnessed this marvelous picture, she goes back, she wants to tell Diana all about what she has seen. And ultimately she's at peace, going to sleep with her window open and her curtains just wafting gently in the breeze. Now this is Anne with an E is during a period of time where having red hair was considered the bane of your existence. So she tries to dye it, turns out green instead of the black she wants. She climbs the peak of a roof. She does all sorts of things. If you have not read the book or seen the musical, I encourage you to explore it. It is a story that, even though slightly dated, still has so much humor in it and so much real love that it is a really lovely book to read to your children at night. My mother read me the entire series, book after book, when I was like 6, 7, and 8. So here I'm going to give you Nocturne, which means night song, by Grieg. And now I thank you for being with me today. I do appreciate each one of you. I feel like I'm talking to my friends when I make these videos, and I know that I'm right in that feeling because I'm gradually starting to meet so many of you by stitching with you online. If you're somebody who would like to stitch with me, please feel free to reach out direct message me on Instagram or through email so that we can know each other's email addresses and find a time that we can stitch together. I can work around many time changes to make it work. Thank you for being you and for embracing the community that we know as Flosstube. And so it is that it's time for me to say goodbye. This time, there will be 2 Sundays blank before I see you again. I hope that as you watched me, that you had floss, needle, and fabric in hand, and that as you made something beautiful, you made yourself happy. Embrace the wonderful therapy that stitching is. Thank you, my friend, and goodbye for now. We'll see you in October.